The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bitten by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there, and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is Andre Mayette, and I'll be your host once again. Thank you for tuning in, and big thanks to Ukla the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And thank you, gentle listener, for tuning in to another action-packed, fun-filled edition. Today, our guest is Sean Jordan, better known as the Wordburglar. Halifax born, bred, rapper, hip-hop artist. Also, he wrote some independent comics that he did with a previous former guest, Dave Howlett. If you haven't listened to that episode, I suggest you go back and give it a listen. He does discuss some of the work he's done with Sean at length. But we had a great interview. Sean's a super cool guy. I had met him at Decaf one year, which is the Dartmouth Comics Art Festival. And afterwards, a bunch of us got together and had some dinner, and he was there, and we were just trading stories and talking about, comics and nostalgia stuff and nerd culture, and it was a lot of fun. So I was very excited to get to bring that energy to you in this episode. But before we get to that, I did manage to finally carve out a little bit of time and go watch the Venom 2 movie, Let There Be Carnage. And oh man, was it not good. Okay, like if you like it, fine. I'm not going to take that away from you. It wasn't good. I'm sorry. Like, I wanted to like it. Like, I liked the first one okay. Like I said before, it was fine. It was the super film. Tom Hardy was good. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of whys, like, why this, why that, why did this guy do that, this makes no sense, what is the purpose of any of this? It's insane. Somebody recently said that the Stinger sequence is the best part of the movie, and I guess I could agree with that. However, what do I have to sit through an hour and a half movie to just watch a Stinger sequence to set up another movie? So, I just can't, man. Like, the movie was pretty tight. It was like an hour and a half. I would have been happy if they would have thrown in an extra 20 minutes to explain some of the stuff. And I feel like they could have done that. Maybe they had to keep the pace going. I don't know. But, not good. I have also been checking out the movies that made us, or made me, rather. Or made us? I think it's movies that made us on Netflix. They released some new Halloween kind of specific horror movie editions. And a few other movies as well, and really digging that, and also watching Squid Game, which is the new cultural phenomenon that everybody has, been talking about, been raving about, been absolutely adoring, and I must say, it's very good. I did get sidetracked on the movies that made us show, but now I'm back to the Squid Game, and in episode 3, man, I'm super digging it. It's I've always liked Korean cinema. It's like any culture, there's good and bad movies. However, there's been most of the Korean movies I've seen I've thoroughly enjoyed. They usually bring something to the table I haven't seen before. And I know, there are a lot of comparisons to this, to like Hunger Games, which is itself kind of a knockoff of Battle Royale. The concept of people, blood sports, kind of has been around since The Most Dangerous Game, which is a short story from, turn of the century, that we actually had to read in English class, that they've made multiple versions out of in film and variations of in other films and books and whatnot. The series itself doesn't really go into like people versus people. It's more like people versus games, where the consequence is death. So, but it's good. It's certainly a deep dive into capitalism, into what people do when they are backs against the wall financially. And, it's kind of deeply human in a way, and I really dig it. It's a great show. Another thing I really dug was my talk. Like that segue? I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. My talk with Wordburglar. Sean's super cool. I did a deep dive into his music leading up to this interview, and I've discovered some tunes that have been stuck in my head that I can't leave. They've just stuck in there. Cybertronosaur, particularly. Rental Patient is pretty great, which I didn't realize until Sean had messaged me afterwards that it was featured in the song Rental Patient was featured in the Netflix film The Last Blockbuster, which I did watch and did enjoy, the documentary about the last blockbuster, and I'm blanking on where it is, somewhere in the States, but there's only one left. There was one in Alaska, but I guess that one closed as well. So they are officially the last working blockbuster. And his song was featured in that documentary, which is super cool. And it's a super great song and really, really applies to that film and sort of the idea of holding on to this nostalgia in a world that is fiercely trying to make you abandon it or at least upgrade into something else. The conversation about that can be a long and nuanced one, but so I won't get too deep into it, especially since I'm just talking to myself. However, I do feel like there are bastions of our youth that do get left behind because of advances in technology, which is fine, but I also think there is a niche market for some people that want to thrive and enjoy that and still, live within it. I mean, I still collect movies and records, so, and comic books, physical comic books and books, so I'm guilty of it as well, but I do believe there are quite a few like me that enjoy physical media and probably will continue to do so as long as they're able. So it's really neat that Sean's song got featured in a film that sort of celebrates that with people that still rent movies. Super cool. So anyway, without much further ado, I guess, let's just get into the interview. Here I am talking to Halifax born and raised, hip-hop R&B artist, all-around awesome dude, Wordburglar. I am good. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Excellent.
Thanks for working in this schedule. I know you had to do some trivia tonight.
No, I did. I used to do them on Thursdays, and then they just restarted after the summer, so they moved it to Tuesdays on me, which kind of threw off my schedule because I'm really used to having Tuesdays totally free. So, but all is good. How are things with you?
Great, man. Yeah, just busy. Best they can be in these insane times. Just keeping busy. My wife and I had a baby girl just at the start of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
So we've been parenting in pandemic times, so that's been fun, and honestly can't complain. It's been great. Just getting a lot of extra time. So I'm in Toronto right now. We had like a much longer lockdown. Where are you? Are you in New Brunswick or are you?
No, I'm in Truro, Nova Scotia.
Oh, you're in Truro.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we've had it pretty good down here compared to the rest of Canada, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, my family's in Nova Scotia, and so it sucks because we haven't been able to introduce the baby yet. We haven't been able to get her home. So. Oh
yeah, I suppose so. It seems like every time it gets close to that stuff opening up, it just kind of gets peeled back again.
Yeah. But we'll get back in 2022, I think, for a nice long stay. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, congratulations on the little one. What's her name?
Thanks. Yeah, Charlie.
Oh,
Charlie
sweet.
Jordan. Yeah. She's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know. Do you have kids or?
No, cats. No. I have cats.
Oh yeah. I had many cats myself. So yeah.
We got 4 of them running around, so there's no room for a kid in the mix.
No.
That's really cool, man. I mean, what a time to have a kid. Like just before, like what are we talking about? Like, because March is sort of when everything blew up. Was it?
So she was born at the end of December.
Oh, wow.
Festivus, December 23rd. So we were just
great milestone.
Yeah, it was kind of like the first. We're like, the first month or two, we'll just kind of get our bearings. And then what the hell? Like basically nothing it was obviously nothing the world could have planned for. Yeah. So whatever, but it's good. We've been busy. Like I'm working, my wife's working, like we've been busier than ever. So that's good. Except I haven't been able to like tour or anything, but
but your creative output online has been pretty solid. Like you had an album come out just past year, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a vinyl release, and I've got a new vinyl crowdfunder we're going to be starting. We're going to be launching probably first week in November, and just kind of constantly doing. I've been recording like crazy. I've kind of got 3 albums almost finished, and just kind of waiting to see when a good time to start releasing them again is, because live shows are just starting up in Toronto, and a lot of my friends are doing a mini shows here and there, so we'll see. But but yeah, I got some comic book stuff on the go. So blah blah blah, lots going on.
Awesome.
So, yeah, man. Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, about the same. I mean, a little bit of work here and there. The graphic design thing never really stopped, but the acting thing trailed off a bit for a while, and which is coming back now, somewhat around the area. So, doing a bit of that. I do theater and stuff too, so I'm doing a little bit of that right now. We have a play coming up, and
oh, that's great. Where at?
Here in Truro, this community theater group I'm a part of, called Hubtown Theater.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's actually their 100th show. They've been around for like 41 years. So
Wow, what is it called again?
Hubtown Theater. Yeah, they're out of the Marigold Center.
Nice. Yeah, I did a bunch of theater actually, and I was we had a troupe in Halifax for a few years. This is back in like the early 2000s, and yeah, and we did a lot of fringe festivals. We toured around and did a bunch of shows. Did a thing at Neptune. Did all kinds of crap. We worked with a bunch of like the Shakespeare by the Sea people, and
awesome.
yeah, so I was heavily involved. My friend, I don't know if you know Andre Davey. He was a director who did a lot of theater.
I should with some name like that, but
yeah, I guess so.
I know a few guys involved in the theater scene around Halifax, like Stephen Heisler. Do you know him?
Well, that name sounds familiar, but
he was involved with Geeks versus Nerds, which is something I did.
Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah, totally.
I did a lot of stuff with them.
Around?
No, they folded it. I did it for like 5 or 6 years, and then they stopped doing them like at shows around. They were just doing them at conventions, and then they stopped doing that. So it sounds like it's kind of done, which sucks because they're really fun. It's a fun stage.
Yeah. And we did. Do you know like 2B Theater? They still do stuff, I think. Yeah. So I knew those guys. And anyways, yeah, it feels like another lifetime. But I was doing music, and the music just got me way busier than the theater stuff did.
Well,
so,
it sounds like you picked the horse that worked best for you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you just follow where the road goes.
So is Halifax home? Like you were born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I started moving. Are we recording now? Or
yeah.
Oh, so is all of this?
Yeah. We can. I may edit it a little bit, but I generally just let it flow into a conversation.
Oh, okay. Geez, I'm divulging all these secrets, man.
I'm sorry. Is that too much? I can cut it back to here if you want.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's whatever. It's all good, man.
It's totally your call.
Yeah. No. Hey, it's your podcast. Yeah,
I'm just sort of a casual conversation to get to know you as a person, your life, and kind of up to this point. So
totally. Well, see, I just want to ask you. I mean, the people listening at home can't see these like insane gremlins behind you.
Oh yeah. Actually, it's funny because we have a common friend in Dave Howlett. So I had him on the show a while ago, and that's one of the first things he commented on as well. So I've always been a huge Gremlins fan. In fact, I have a poster, like a full-size kind of alternative art poster on the wall here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I actually, behind me over there, I think that thing is a frame from the film reel that lights up when you press the box. And the life-size ones are just the replicas of the NECA did these replica puppets that are life-size of a basic Gremlin, the stripe one, and the flasher one.
Wow, so those are puppets.
Yeah, well, they're replicas. You actually can put your hand in them and kind of move them around a little bit, but they're not like quite as elaborate as the actual ones were. A friend of mine who does special effects in movies as well did this one for me, which is it's a model kit that's he put together and painted. This is Spike from Gremlins 2.
Yeah, I know it well. I love Gremlins 2, man. Daniel Clamp.
Oh, it's funny. I'm a huge fan of this podcast. The Movies That Made Me, it's called. It's with Joe Dante's one of the hosts, and Josh Olson, he's a script writer. He wrote A History of Violence, like he wrote the script for that. So they just like talk to other creative types about like what movies influenced them the most. And man, like I'm a huge fan of Joe Dante's movies in general.
The Burbs is maybe my favorite movie of all time.
You know what? I've discovered some. Yeah, I've only watched that one recently because I never saw it growing up, and a friend of mine always talked about it, and I loved it dearly. Like it's so good. But I even watched like Matinee recently, which I'd never seen before, and it's a masterpiece. It's fantastic.
Yeah, John Goodman. Yeah,
and like all that William Castle throwback stuff, and the like strapping to the Cold War with the gimmick theater stuff. It's perfect. It's such a good movie. It's one that I show anybody that I haven't seen it yet. Everybody has those sort of list of movies, and if you haven't seen it, like you got to watch this. Matinee is definitely on that list for me.
Yeah, that's a, you know what? I haven't seen it. I remember watching it with my parents, actually. They rented it back in the day when you would rent those pieces of plastic from a building.
It's a
Take it
golden
home
era.
for a day.
It's a golden era.
Yeah, man. Of course.
So it was like, obviously the influence in your work is like comic stuff. I mean, obviously, like, just looking, like, I did kind of a deep dive through your stuff again, preparing for this, and the references are just overwhelming with how much stuff is, you know, relatable to myself and people of my, like, I'm 36, but people even of my generation, like with all the Transformers and GI Joe and all that wonderful stuff. So like, what were you that deep down the nerd rabbit hole as a kid as well, or is that something that kind of came a little later on?
Yeah, no, I've always just loved stuff. I think by nature, like, if I like something, I just remember it and never forget about it. And I've just always loved, I mean, yeah, comic books. You know, my parents were really into music. They had great record collections, so there was always music around. My dad is he's a big reader and just loved reading. So they encouraged, you know, music was always around and reading was always around.
What music was around?
Oh, I mean, they had, you know, you look at any, like, it's like disco, a lot of Motown. You know, my mom loved the Beatles, of course. And so there was like a variety. She had a lot of Elton John. I would gravitate to, I love the disco records. Okay. Like full, like, I love the beats. I love, like, being able to move around. And then, like, you know, good 80s pop music and stuff like that. I don't know, Whitney Houston. My mom loved Barry Manilow, which is very divisive amongst people. But
was your dad aligned musically, or did they have very different things?
My dad was like pretty, like, he was all over the place. So I remember he used to play the Traveling Wilburys all the time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And but then, like, the other, like, he had Stevie Wonder. I'm just thinking of all the records that would be blasted at any given time. And then, like, if we liked something, you know, they would let us play our records and tapes and CDs and stuff. Nice. And you know, but yeah, they encouraged reading a lot, and I loved comic books. And you know, this was back in the day, you know, when comics were at grocery stores and gas stations. Yeah. So
I used to go to Needs to buy them.
Dude,
that's an old time. That's an old Antigonish going to the Needs for the rack just to find something to read.
I actually just made a song about meeting Spider-Man at Needs. Did Spider-Man ever come to your Needs?
No, he did not.
He came to my Needs, the one at Queen, just at the bottom of Queen Street. It's now a liquor store. But yeah, for some reason, in the middle of the summer at like 6 a.m, a guy in a Spider-Man costume did an appearance at Needs. And I won't spoil it, but I've got a song I just did with my buddy Danny about it. And but yeah, I love that you mentioned Needs. But yeah, you get comics there, you get cards. Anyways, yeah, so I just always loved that stuff. And anytime I could, like, get my hands on an action figure or watch a cartoon, I loved it. And again, I think, like, growing up in that era, when you look at, like, 80s, 90s stuff, I mean, I always hate to say, you know, before the internet, but
yeah, no, it's true though.
Things were fleeting. You would see something once, never again. You didn't know if that was real. And it wasn't until you got a bit older and you'd, like, talk to someone like, oh, wait a second. You remember there were these, like, bug, like, toys that would, like, you could put your hands in them. Oh, there's a sectors. Those were called sectors. Yeah. And I remember being at some kid's house, and his older brother had sectors figures, and I didn't know what they were for a while. Or there'd be a comic book. So weird things like that, right? I've just always liked this stuff. And maybe it was because we grew up in the Maritimes that I think we were a bit more starved for this stuff, because we only had, you only had access to limited things, and you wouldn't, we got great stuff, but I get comic books out of order. You'd get a Spider-Man issue here, and then you wouldn't know how the story ended, and you'd pick up the next issue and it'd be like 40 issues later.
Oh yeah. No, that was the struggle too, especially if you didn't have the money to really just go buy them all the time.
You're kids, you got no money. There's like nothing, I got a paper route in junior high, and then I could finally buy stuff. And then I went ham.
I grew up in Antigonish and out in the country. So there's a comic.
Antigonish,
I worked the traders in the Antigonish Mall.
Nice. Okay.
And they were like, when I was a kid, I used to get my comics there. And then when I did like a work thing where they put you're allowed to pick a place to go work for a day, I wouldn't work there just because it was a comic store where they sold some comics. So that was sort of my intake. But it's funny that you mentioned like how hard it was, like just to get some of that stuff, and also the things that you may have encountered, and just like we're fleeting on the edges of your like Brave Star was one that I vaguely remember catching as a kid. And also like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, but one was
great examples. Yeah,
Captain Power. Is that what it was? Yeah, that show messed me up as a kid because the finale was one of the like my I didn't have cable growing up. Like I had CBC and ATV. That was it.
Yeah.
My grandmother and Antigonish had like YTV. That's where I'd watch all the stuff at.
What about ASN? They
no,
the
we
craziest
didn't get that.
movies.
Nope, never got that. We only got a Global when I was like in high school, and that was like I got New Simpsons, and so I was happy. Sweet. But I remember like the finale for Captain Power, and it was like one of the most sad, like for a kid, there's a character committed suicide, like they killed off half the roster of heroes. It was like one of the darkest things I ever saw, and I was like, did I remember this right? Like, was I watching a kid's show that would do that? And I looked, and then later on when the internet finally came around, you could look up that stuff. You're like, yeah, no, they totally did.
It was crazy, and that's J. Michael Straczynski too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
He did
exactly.
Babylon 5 and wrote a ton of comic books. That show, is bananas.
Yeah, and they only had the one season. Never, you get this crazy cliffhanger, but
it was so dark.
I know. And like, even not to sound like an old fogey, but you're like people don't. I mean, younger people don't really understand how crazy. Like I was into Power Rangers and I was super young, and like I didn't have the channel, so I'd have to go buy a VHS tape of one episode of Power Rangers. So it was like $25 for a 22-minute episode of a TV show just to watch it. Like it's so insane now. You can buy, full seasons for less on any streaming service if it's one you have to buy stuff on.
You're preaching to the choir, man. And that's basically, I mean, that's then now I just rap about it because it's all in my head and I like need to like talk about this.
Yeah. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a sister, and she wasn't really into this stuff. She gives me a younger, and she gives me a hard time because I would try and trick my parents into taking us to like Micmac Mall or Halifax Shopping Center, because I'd be like, oh, my sister, Kelly wants she wants this new like Barbie, or she wants this new My Little Pony or something. My sister be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, you want it. It's a good one. And of course, I just want my parents to take us there so I can like try and check out a new G.I. Joe or Transformer or something, right? Because Micmac Mall was like the spot. There was also a Towers a million years ago.
Really?
It used to be good. And Zellers. Towers was actually in Bedford. Our buddy Dave knows that Towers, and they used to have
be the
crazy...
same as the because there's Towers all across Europe. Is it the same brand company? Like, no, they're like a record and video store. But they sell like all kinds of nerdy stuff too.
Yeah, I wonder if they are related to Tower Records.
Yeah.
I never made that connection, but Towers was like a Kmart or a Zellers.
Yeah,
and they had crazy. Like if you found yourself in Towers, the toys there were nuts. And again too, it's like you get one thing. So like I love G.I. Joe, and luckily G.I. Joes were like the cheapest figures you could get. Oh, yeah. They were like $3 to $5, and so
I think the quality reflected that.
Yeah, you know what, they still hold up. I gotta say, they used some good plastic. Plastic. We can talk about that all day.
Pure lead paint, and
they use good plastic on those Joes. Yeah, man.
That's very cool. So, like as far as the music side of things go, is that always, because I know you wrote like when you were doing like Snaker's Pizza and writing that, like how old were you around then? Was that a college thing or like a
Snaker's Pizza was? I mean, that when we started it was in the early 2000s. So I don't know. No, I wasn't. I was like in and out of college around then.
Mm-hmm. So when did music, I guess, become like an influence, I suppose? That's what I'm getting to.
Well, music, I was doing music when I was a kid. I started messing around. I didn't even know what I was doing, and I was just making songs in like grade 5. Mm-hmm. So I loved rap and any kind of music. And my family, my mom has a very big family, and they would have these big family parties, like, most people, I'm sure. And that, like, my uncles would always like sing and do like comedy routines, like at these big like family barbecues, and they like had this rapport. Like, my mom's the youngest of 9 kids.
Oh, wow.
So all the kids they had kids. So there was always tons of cousins and all these people around. So I benefited from having older cousins who would show me cool comics and movies and toys and stuff, like video games, and I like would glean all this awesome info and exposure from that stuff, from them about that stuff. And then my uncles would be always like performing, so I'd like see like adults performing and doing comedy and music and stuff. So I think I just like absorbed more of that than I realized, and would just start doing it myself and making little songs. And my cousin Joe, who is like an incredible songwriter and musician, he had a 4-track, and he would make his own music. And I used to go to his house, and he would like make beats for me to rap on, because he knew I liked to rap, and he encouraged me. So I have like all these really old tapes of me making terrible rap songs, from the ages of like probably like 10 to like 15, 16. And I'm still trying to make good rap songs.
I was going to say, no desire to like sample those into any current track.
Actually, my buddy Peter surprised me last year and digitized them all. He borrowed the tapes and digitized them. So we've been talking about maybe sampling some for fun, for some future stuff. That's great.
So where did the interest in rap initially come from? Like you mentioned, was it your uncles like singing rap songs and stuff?
No.
I'd be pretty impressed if that was your family, because I know it sounds a lot like mine, and I couldn't imagine, my Uncle Wayne just beatboxing out something at a family gathering.
Yeah, my mom's family is an Italian family, and so they would do like, I don't know, they did all kinds of different stuff. Weirdly, actually, my one uncle I remember him doing like Johnny Cash songs. But
that sounds more in line with the area.
Yeah. And then and my dad's family's Irish, so that's where my name Irish, I guess. But rap I just loved. I don't know, maybe it was because I liked disco when I was younger, and like the beats were similar. But I just remember hearing early rap like Run DMC and Fat Boys and Fresh Prince, just all that stuff coming out of the 80s, right? And like that amazing pocket. Like 88 is such in the hip hop world, I don't know how familiar you are with like old school hip hop, but like 1988 is like a crazy year when you look at all the albums that came out and how things were shaped. And just blew up. And that was like, I remember so many of these like albums and tapes, and I'd get exposed to them a bit later, but like early 90s, you could get these rap tapes called rap tracks, and they were basically compilations of all the -- singles of all these like rap albums from like the late 80s. So yeah, I would listen to those, and my friend, dub them for my friends and cousins, and just always loved them. And I just always liked listening to rap. And then I would watch Much Music and, watch all the rap videos there. And then I stumbled on a CKDU, and Buck 65 had a radio show called The Basement, and it was all underground hip hop. And he made a real point about educating the listener on old school hip hop and everything about hip hop and the art of hip hop and rap. And I got exposed to so much great music through him. And then the kids in my neighborhood and like my older cousins and stuff, I would get like Public Enemy and I don't know, LL Cool J. I could name albums all day.
Yeah.
I just continued to like listen and love rap, and just kind of secretly keep writing my own little rap songs, and then started making more songs with my friends in junior high and high school. And my friends just kind of always kept encouraging me to make rhymes, and I never stopped doing it. I never really thought, I'm going to make rap like a life career. It's just been like a love that I've always had and always done. And I knew when I was making it, I wanted to make it true to me. I wanted to make the rap that was, a big part of it to me is, well, you have to be real, like in any art form. And so that's like a long process and figuring it out. And I knew that, the the truest way for me to express myself in music was just to really rap about everything I love and know. So that's why I rap about comic books and sandwiches and baseball and hockey and whatever, right? And like, well, practicing just making really good rhymes.
Yeah. No,
That's a really long answer, man.
No, it's a good one. And it's funny because I was thinking about that, just looking at the content of some of your things, and it's stuff that kind of speaks to not just like nerds and like if you're a fan of comics or G.I. Joe or Transformers or whatever, but like just the experience, I think, of being like not even just nerdy stuff, but the experience of being into nerdy stuff. Like the track you did about is it your best friend's brother or your friend's brother?
Yeah, your friend's brother.
Yeah, and like all of the lines in that, like it just brings me back to this time period where like my friend had a brother who's into weird stuff and like smoked certain cigarettes and was just like kind of off-putting and weird, but would like have like albums or weird music that you never heard before, or comics or books, or just like, and it's funny because it really does speak to that, to the experience, not just the stuff, not just the show, but like the actual core experience of being a nerd. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that quite a bit, because it really, I think everybody knows that guy, somebody like that guy.
Thanks, man. Yeah. And that's being the observer, and just really, that song, I was walking around one of the last Zellers, I think, in existence
as it was dying, as the empire was crumbling.
Yeah. And I got inspired. Like, it was the Zellers was literally crumbling. Like the shelves hadn't been restocked in years, just like gray, dusty areas where you're like, man, some kid got lost in there in 1992 and no one's heard from them since, like, just like, I don't know, like, just like weird vibes. And I got these like echoes in my mind of this guy, like your friend's brother. And especially like when you're in your 20s or whatever, and you're just you're living and everything's moving so fast, you're going forward, sometimes you don't look back, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, did this guy exist? Was he real? And then trying to piece that story together, and then looking around Zellers and seeing one of the guys working there and be like, could that be? Was that my friend's brother? So that was, and that song just wrote itself. I think I sat down that night and it just like poured out of me. Like I would write notes on my phone or whatever piece of paper I had and just like scribbled it out, and it just kind of, all came out. So yeah, I'm glad you that song spoke to you. Yeah, well, that's why I'm here, man. We're the bond.
I would say as a nerd, I'm definitely your target audience. That's for sure. So, and it definitely hits well, and especially, I mean, there's always sort of I think being from the Maritimes, people are rather protective of creative types that come out of this area in a way, just because we're all, there's so few people that seem to achieve much on those artistic scale outside of just stuff here. So whenever people do, we're always very like supportive and protective of it, I think. So
well, yeah, I appreciate that. I think my favorite artists are from the Maritimes in Canada, like I don't know, a few
mine are now too, and
man,
it's fantastic. So so what you mentioned, you went to college. What did you take?
I studied English and theater and artistic pursuits, and did a bunch of odds and ends here and there. And it's funny because I thought, it was really my mom who encouraged me. She thought that my path was somewhere in the arts. So she was very encouraging there. And my dad too, of course. But I remember my mom like kind of give me that nudge, because when I was in high school, I played sports. I was on the football team. I was at St. Pat's High, and I played on the football team. I played basketball, I played hockey, I played baseball, but I was also very involved in the arts, and I was, doing, the art courses there, and doing, I was in the musicals, and like my friends had kind of encouraged me to get into musicals. So I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to pursue something more active or more artistic. And I got, I was working at Strange Adventures comic shop in Halifax.
Nice.
It was really my second home, and my family really, like those, Cal and Dave and everybody. And working at the comic shop, it just exposed me to so many new artists and so much more creative inspiration. And the cool thing about working there, on top of just the amazing community around it, a lot of people would come in and out of the store, like if they were visiting and they were actors or musicians, and they would like stop by, and it really Strange Adventures to this day. It's you have to go there as a destination spot. So I would meet, like Colin Mockery came in one day, and I remember Joel Plaskett coming in, and like all these, you just meet people. And like for me, like a lot of the hip hop guys would come in. So like Buck 65 and 6'2", the Sebitones, and a lot of these guys that I looked up to in the local music scene. And you just meet people, and it just became a great network for artists. And so even in high school, I was kind of feeling that, like, oh cool, like you can do art and do cool things. I know it sounds kind of lame now.
No, but it's true. It's totally true. And I think it's probably affirming to see people like you that, because they're going to the comic store where you would go, and they're people that have achieved these artistic things, but they're still, doing their nerdy stuff, going to the comic store, being similar to you in that way. Were your parents always kind of supportive of the rap thing, or was that something that was like?
Yeah, I don't think they really thought much of, like, they knew, like, I would, if I had money for my paper route, I would be at Sam the Record Man buying rap albums. And I was taping the rap shows. I'd be calling into the CKDU with my buddies and recording all these rap songs. And they were just like, okay, cool. Like they were just doing these fun things. And, but yeah, they've been supportive. They've always been supportive of anything. I mean, I got to shout out anybody's parents who support them, because I think that's so key. As a new parent myself, you think about a lot of this stuff and how important it is to just let your kid just kind of figure some things out and support them. And
I've been surprised.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful to them for never saying, oh, this rap music is, you shouldn't, don't waste your time with that. They were very encouraging, and my parents just, they're awesome. So shout out parents.
I'm surprised how often during this, like, because I talk to like a lot of creative types like yourself and people that do comics or write or art, and I'm quite surprised, because I would expect most people to be, have parents, because most parents really like just want the best for you, and they think that pursuing something in the arts probably isn't. It's probably fulfilling to you, like it's probably something you want, but in the end, it might not be what's best for you, because you might not make it or you might struggle. So they just want you to do to achieve. But I've been quite surprised how many people had quite supportive parents. Like I would have expected to be way less, but it seems like perhaps there's something to this parental support in an artistic endeavor than just shutting it down because you don't think it's, they're going to go anywhere with it. Leading towards some success in your field, because, it's, I was like quite surprised.
That's great. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. So, okay. So how long did you work at Strange Adventures for? I probably encountered you when I was a kid, because I used to go there whenever I made it to Halifax.
Yeah. Well, it feels like a lifetime. I don't know total, because I worked there for years, worked there throughout high school. Then like graduating high school, I was still there. Then I moved to Toronto and I got a job working at a comic shop in downtown Toronto called Silver Snail.
I was going to say, is it Silver Snail, the famous comic?
Yeah, the famous, and I got that really through Strange Adventures. And when I went to Silver Snail in Toronto, I walked in and I got talking with the manager there and said, oh yeah, I work at a shop, Strange Adventures in Halifax. He's like, I know that shop, like Strange Adventures.
Oh yeah.
The legend preceded it everywhere. And the owner had a lot of respect. And the owner, Ron Van Leeuwen, I got to shout out, started basically, in my opinion, was the guy to help start the direct market for comics in Canada. Like that's a huge story that people don't even think about. But there were no comic shops, in the 70s. There were a few other guys, right? But Ron was one of the key people. So really a legend in the comic book industry in Canada. And I think any comic lover in Canada owes a bit of respect to Ron for that. And anyways, he had so much love and respect for Cal and Strange Adventures. And he was just saying that this is like one of the greatest shops in Canada, blah, blah, blah. Like he had all this praise. So I just basically got the job at the Snail because Strange Adventures had such a good, had such great cred, and Cal's such a great guy. And so, I was like, oh, I better not mess this up. I got like, I'm the rep of Halifax here right now.
Yeah.
And then actually I wasn't the last strange adventurer to wind up working at the Snail. So a few went after me as well. Anyway, so I was at Strange for years, probably 5 or 6 years. Then I moved to Toronto, and then I was bouncing back and forth between Toronto and Halifax. Basically for years and years. And when I was in Halifax, Cal always offered me a spot to work at the shop, which was amazing. And then when I was in Toronto, I would work at the Snail. And, the artist, I guess the music life is a bit unpredictable. So I would go off somewhere and do touring or do what I could and hustle and bounce around a lot. So, I think all in all, I worked comic book retail probably 15 or 16 years, maybe more. Yeah, it's crazy.
So was the move to Toronto predominantly to start the music career?
It was just to try everything. So my cousin Joe, I talked about, lived in Toronto, and I knew a lot of people in Toronto. And look, I mean, you're from the Maritimes, if you have an interest in music, comic books, comedy, sports, like Toronto's got all these great things, and it's not for everyone to live in. It's a bit of a grind for sure. But when I had the opportunity to get a job working at the comic shop right in the center of downtown Toronto, I jumped at it, and instantly, because I knew I wanted to check out, like, get involved in the music scene. First of all, the rap scene alone was like 1,000 times bigger than the Halifax rap scene.
Oh yeah.
So I was instantly performing at open mic nights and cutting my teeth against rappers from all across Canada, let alone Toronto, and just like instantly like sharpening my tool set. Like it was just like my skills were just like fast forward, I think, from going to having limited places to perform to going to a place where I could literally perform at a different pub almost every night if I wanted, like different club or music venue. And I just like went all in, and I was performing at rap clubs, comedy clubs, theater shows, just doing anything. Meanwhile, like the comic book industry was like blowing up, and all these great comic creators were doing stuff. So I'm working at the comic shop by day and like getting to meet just Darwin Cook and like all these incredible creators who would go on to do huge things, Jeff Lemire and Olivier Coppel and all these people. And then just like seeing all this stuff growing, it was addicting. It was like, okay, this is Toronto's kind of what's happening right now. And yeah, the rap scene in Halifax was really drying up. This was like, mid 2000s, there's definitely there's obviously great people doing awesome stuff in Halifax and a lot of amazing hip hop coming out of there. And the people who were grinding were just doing amazing stuff. But everyone that I had been following, like the Sebutones and, all these other artists, a lot of them had just like left, and everyone was kind of going. So it's a cliche, like leaving for the big city to just like experience all this new stuff, but it's real. And it definitely, it was great. Well, but obviously I got back to Halifax as much as I could and still do. So,
well, it is a cliche, but it's also like a proven fact. You go where the stuff is, you can stay. I mean, the internet has made it easier to stay where you are and maybe make it in whatever thing you're doing that way. But I mean, for every classified, there's, 20 other guys that didn't really do anything, or go anywhere.
And Class is one of the hardest working people in Canada, like in the world. Like Class his ethic from the get-go has been incredible. So all the love to Class for sure. And I mean, Truro is a hotbed for incredible hip-hop. I still see Check Love around, like Hip Club Groove, legendary. Like there's the Nova Scotia and maritime hip-hop scene's incredible. I just wish it would get more love and respect. And even at the time, trying to book a rap show in Halifax, people didn't want to book rap shows. As soon as they heard, oh, you're doing a rap show, no, we only book rock shows.
Even now, I wouldn't say I see it advertised very often. I can't think of the last time I saw any kind of more than just at a bar somewhere or something in Halifax. But
yeah, you'd have to fight tooth and nail to get a show back in the day. I mean, now, like, even now it's hard, I think, for any band, but definitely like the hip hop shows were like, I used to go to all ages shows at a place called Cafe Olay on Barrington. I don't know if you remember that. It became the Pavilion.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and they would do all age punk shows and rap shows, and so Joe Run, who to me is like one of the most important hip hop artists in Canada ever, who's from Halifax, he used to put on these all ages rap shows called the Howtown Meltdowns, and I used to go to those. And yeah, all the people in the scene back then would go, and being like 13 years old and getting to see like a rap show was incredible. And those guys all really inspired me to this day. And like, yeah, like I'm still in touch with Joe and Buck 65. And
yeah, I was going to say, because I saw you collaborated with Buck 65. So it must've been kind of surreal to get to the opportunity to work with someone that kind of started you on the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's a legend. I think anyone familiar with his output is just like, I think he was a pioneer, and I think Joe Run as well. Like, and Joe Run should be a household name, I think, he is for underground hip hop heads. Like, I think if you know your rap, Joe Run Bombay is like, Questlove and all these incredible Kid Capri and all these huge American DJs give Joe Run, like, and DJ Jazzy Jeff, like, they're all huge fans of Joe Run. And yet in Halifax, he's still like not that well known. It's so funny.
I want to have to do some research, because the name didn't string a bell with me either. But I'm also not like a massive hip hop guy. Like, I do have an interest, and I do listen. But my tastes aren't quite as varied as they could be. So but I'm always excited to listen to new music and kind of get into it as well. So.
Oh, for sure, man. There's so much out there. There's so much.
So when did it feel like you were hitting, I guess, like that this was the path and the career beyond the open mics? Like, when you sort of, if you were to describe a moment that would be like, this is where I kind of made it, in a sense, would you say that moment is hit? And if so, is it one of those collaborations, or is it a show or tour?
Yeah, I mean, the term "made it" has always been a bit, to me, like,
I struggle to use it, because I actually don't know if any artist can really ever feel like that they had some crowning achievement. But
yeah, no, man, it was all good. I feel it's like I'm always making stuff. So it's great. I know when I was doing like just shows every night, and I just didn't want to stop doing it, and I just wanted to make new songs, and I wanted to keep going to the studio and keep working with other artists. And I was just like, I just love doing this all the time. And I guess I started getting invites from people I didn't know to perform and tour and go down to the States. And this is when MySpace was happening, and people would find me, I don't know how, and a friend of a friend gave them a CD, and they played it on a college radio station, and they want to bring me to Texas or Florida or something. I was like, is this real? I guess that's when I realized, and again, it's very small scale, like very just like a couple friends are like, let's get this guy, that'd be funny, or something, right? And then, hey, I'm here. And then doing these crazy shows and meeting, I became lifelong friends with people I did a show with in Orlando in like 2008. That was just like in this restaurant that was just, the walls were dripping. It was so hot in there. And it was just like a Mexican restaurant, and they had set up these speakers, and there were all these amazing artists there. And anyways, I just have known I've always liked doing this, and I've just always liked doing it, whether or not anyone was listening. So the fact now that like people can listen, I mean, like yourself or anyone is like, oh, or I get this reference, or, you're talking about your friend's brother again. It's like, yeah, it's like this connects with you. It's like awesome. Like these songs that I've just been writing in my bedroom, people, I think, like, obviously, like any artist, when you create something, it's a very intimate and personal thing, and you're just doing it for yourself, I think, to start. And then when other people, as soon as somebody else, other than your mom, thinks it's good, then I guess there's your answer.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Someone other than your mom thinks you did something good, I guess that's when you make it.
I feel like that's a song. Yeah.
I'll
There
write
you
it down
go.
now. Let me grab it.
Yeah, other than your mom. Oh, that's super
One
cool.
person other than your mom will pay to see you.
That's right.
There, you made it.
And when did the family come into play? Your wife?
We had our kid right at the end of 2019, and my wife's been in play for a while.
Where'd you two meet at?
She ever since she first came to my apartment and saw my GI Joes on a shelf and said, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, does this weird you out?" She's like, "No, I like how organized they are." So I was like, "Yes, I got the ninjas with the ninjas, the vipers with the vipers." I knew somebody would.
The fact you could even recognize that is impressive in itself. Yeah, that's always nice to make a connection with someone on some kind of a nerdy scope that you wouldn't expect to. Like my wife as well. I think she came over one night to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit with me, which is like my favorite movie. And I was like, all right. She's like, I love that movie. I'm like, all right, I'm definitely going to stick with this for a while. So, one of those things.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm the Star Wars and comics, and she loves Buffy and Harry Potter. So
you got them all covered there.
Yeah. We find a lot of middle ground.
That's fantastic. Cool. And when you're doing all this, you're also keeping your hand in and doing some independent comics, I see, or your last book. Is the last paper out done, or are you still working on that?
It is. No, it's far from done. We just haven't got a new issue out in a couple of years.
Okay.
So so that's the comic inspired by the life and times of paper routing of me and my best friend Alex Kennedy, and another comic fan, the first person who brought me to Strange Adventures. And we had paper routes right next to each other and went to the same junior high and just been like buddies since the start of time. And we used to do a comic called Adventures in Paper Routing, again going back to Strange Adventures, and we would do this we made this comic in junior high just when we weren't paying attention in the back of like French class. We'd be like making our own comics in our scribblers.
Yeah,
they still call them scribblers too. Is that what it's called? Yeah,
probably. I mean, they probably just use iPads for everything now, but I mean, I remember the margins of my scribblers from school were literally all comics. Like I had characters and there's whole overarching stories and character development and
amazing. Do you still have them?
You know what? I don't think I do, but it would have been cool to hold on to this.
Oh man, is that Hilroy Scribbler?
Yes, or the fancier ones with the metal winding down the side.
Oh yeah. Oh, those are the fancy ones.
Yeah, my mom must have sprung for the extra that year.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Or the duotangs. Bring your own paper.
The duotang. I feel like that's a relic of a bygone era for sure.
Yeah. So we'd make our own comics and we brought them to Strange Adventures. And I remember Cal, who was very diplomatic, seeing these two kids. And we were half of our comics were just like ripoffs of like Lobo or like bad Image Comics knockoffs. And we had one inspired by the characters on our paper route, who to us, just being these kids, when you're delivering the news to adults in a variety of buildings, like my route was downtown Halifax, and I was in and out of at least a dozen apartment buildings every day with all manner of characters and all manner of smells. And we had this comic, Adventures in Paper Routing, and Cal like said, this is like the comic you guys should be doing. This is like your real life. This is your experiences. It's, just do it. So Alex and I just took the ball and ran with it, or the Hilroy Scribbler, and scribbled in it. And we made Adventures in Paper Routing, and we did this comic for years, and it was just so fun. And Cal helped us like make photocopy zines, and we sell them at Word on the Street, do all this stuff. Cal and how encouraging he is to the comics community.
No, he is. I've told the story before, but he, like when I did my first comic, I got it printed locally and I brought it in, and I was just like, hey, I was wondering if you could sell this. And he was like, how many you got? And I was like with me, like 50. He's like, I'll take them all. And like, I was just like, what? Like, I did not expect that. It was like one of the nicest, sweetest things he did, because he put it out and he really like put it right in the shelf of the other comics. And it was very affirming to see your book there with a bunch of other, real in quotes books.
He has shaped the maritime comic industry, and I think to a greater extent, Canada, and I'm going to say the world.
I
but
agree.
like Cal is like, man, I'll be at a Comic-Con in New York and people know Cal. Like you're in San Diego, they know Cal, and like what he's done for the young aspiring artists like yourself, like myself, like we know, like he deserves a medal for the highest
I agree.
order of comics goes to Cal Johnston for sure. And like the way the community is to this day so strong and growing, and just he's just been so encouraging and just loves the art form so much, and the people who create them, and treats them right, and treats people, Cal's the best. I have done a whole podcast dedicated to Cal. I love Cal.
I would love to have him on this sometime, but he's always so busy. It's possible to get in touch with him. So
he's the best. But yeah, so that was anyways. So the last paper route is Alex and I and our other best friend Dave from Strange Adventures, because Dave can draw, is like this insanely talented comic creator. And Alex and I, we can doodle, but we don't have the chops like Dave. And Alex and I were always saying, we want to go back to Adventures in Paper Routing. These were so fun, these comics we made when we were kids. Mm-hmm. So now that we're a bit older, a bit wiser, maybe a bit dumber too, I don't know. And we talked to Dave. We said, we want to relaunch this, redo this, but we need an artist. And Dave was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we did it. And of course, Dave is doing his great comic, The Makers, right now.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's fantastic. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, has Dave been on already?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
That's all right, no worries.
So Dave illustrates it, and we definitely have the next issue. Like Alex and I have the next issue plotted out. We just have to figure things out. And, the small press is a grind in itself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But we've had great reception, and like, honestly, we moved the bulk of them doing shows. So doing Comic-Cons and everything, mm-hmm. and getting them out. They are in shops across, Canada and stuff. But it's nice to like, be like, okay, we've got this big Comic-Con coming up that we're going to be at in 6 months. Let's aim to have the new issue out for that, and like do a nice launch. We always like to have something new to launch at Decaf. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping next summer there could be some great stuff to announce or launch at Decaf.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, it's not done. But we have 4 issues out right now, and you can get them at Strange Adventures if anyone listening wants. If anyone listening is still listening to me,
I believe of course they are. It's funny you mentioned you check out the Dave episode. It's funny. It's a lot of it is me and Dave talking about old horror movies we both love. We align very much on like old horror movies and stuff like that. So it's a lot of talking through his journey, but also taking side tours into weird old horror movies.
Oh, he's a movie master.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because there are many that like I don't know other people that would know these references, and Dave gets them all. So like like we definitely line. There's a few he gave me that I've kind of been saving to watch over Halloween. So that's my next.
Dave gets them all. Yeah, if you can ever show Dave something that he's never heard of, like that feels like you just like climbed Everest.
Yeah. It is a personal achievement for sure. Yeah. Yes. I noticed that you go under your regular name for the book. So is it artistically, is it just a divide that you feel like they're two different worlds, or is it that you just want to achieve it on your own merits as a writer, or is that sort of the impetus for that, or is it just that you just feel like they're two different parts of you that don't really overlap?
No, I mean they're all different sides. I mean, as artist yourself, like though. I don't know. I guess it wasn't a conscious decision. I guess just as a writer, I guess Sean Jordan felt better than Wordburglar, but I understand that Wordburglar, is a bit. There's less Wordburglars running around. I think there's
that's true.
I know at least 3 other Sean Jordans.
Well, that's a good point. Well, because I know like I noticed you collaborate with Czarface there, and he put in some comic work, I think under that name as well. So.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what I was thinking of when I was looking at some of the work. So, and I see you work with the Cybertronic Spree as well, which is pretty fun. That must have been a hoot.
Yeah, Cybertronic Spree. For those who don't know them, check them out. They're a a
You'll
rock
be
band.
surprised how amazing they are. Like
There's-
it's
yeah.
crazy. The theatrics of it is so impressive. I mean, the music's great too, but the theatrics of it is so impressive.
Have you seen them live?
No, I have not, but I'm very excited to do so.
Yeah,
so
we were
hopefully
trying to
can-
get a Nova Scotia show happening.
Oh, I would be there if that does happen.
But this was in the before times, so we'll see. I did a lot of touring with them, and I've been playing shows with them because they're all, for those who don't know, they're a band of Transformers.
Yes,
literally, they are the
They
Transformers.
dress as the Transformers. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
An impressive
war,
costumes.
but amazing 80s inspired Transformers. And they just play all your favorite rock anthems and TV show theme songs and of course the Transformers soundtrack. But I've known them for years because through the music industry in Toronto, the music scene, they were all in other bands. And so we'd be playing shows together, being on bills the same nights and doing different festivals and stuff. So I've always known them. And then when they formed as Cybertronic Spree, they, would invite me to play with them. And of course, our mutual nerdy sides, we've collaborated on a few tracks and stuff. They played a version. I have a song called Rap Viper, and they played it live. We did a show in New York City, and they played the whole thing live, and that was like amazing. I think there's video.
That's the G.I. Joe tribute one, right?
Yeah. So Rap Viper.
The video for that's incredibly impressive.
Thanks, man.
It reminded me. Was there any connection with like the guys that put together the Kung Fury? Because it reminded me a lot of that, the way the layout was.
Oh wow, that's high praise. No, that was done by some people I know in Toronto, 3 a.m. Studio, and they do a lot of just visual effects and videos and stuff. And I had done some stuff with them previously, and they had always, said to me, they're like, hey, when you got new music, we want to hear it because we want to make some videos for you. I was like, okay, cool. So I remember sending them a batch of new music I was working on, and like instantly they got back to me and they're like, this Rap Viper song is crazy. Come over right now. Let's start planning a video. So I was like, okay, good. And so it's always good when you like share something with somebody before it's ever been released, when there's like a reaction like that. And so we were working behind the scenes on that video for a long time, and it blew me away. Like to this day, I don't know how we pulled it off, because they did a lot of incredible like CGI and stuff and digital things, and it's great. And I got to shout out 3 a.m. for that. And of course, Mr. E, who made the beat for that track as well, because that's a jam. Yeah, Cybertronic Spree, they're awesome. We did a Transformers song together, and about Metroplex, who's the nice Transformer. I always thought he was that's another thing. Like as a kid, Metroplex, I was like, oh, Metroplex, he's cool. He lets all the other Transformers sleep in him. He's the city. Like I'm talking to you like I'm assuming everyone listening knows that Metroplex is the Transformer who turns into a city. It's common knowledge, right? Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute or if my headphones.
Oh no, I must hit mute. Sorry.
Listen. Okay.
That was bad. No, I was just saying, of course, Metroplexes. I mean, that's the it's funny because you kind of, as each generation of Transformers, everybody sort of grows up with their version. And I feel like growing up in the way I did without having access to it as much. Like I watched the reruns growing up and G.I. Joe reruns and stuff, but I didn't catch as much. Like Beast Wars in that area was kind of when I started to really get into it. But the soundtrack for the original Transformers movie is fantastic. So that's cool that you guys did that. That's awesome. Cool. Well, did I miss anything? Did I get the whole?
No, this is
Wordburglar
very
experience.
Man, well, I hope so. I don't know. It's been pretty chill. I just feel like I'm hanging in your living room, like shooting the breeze. And
well, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to do so anytime. I'm digging the shelf behind you. I see some Hernandez back there, and yeah,
good eye, man. Yeah, Locus, yeah, for sure.
In the G.I. Joe collection, of course.
Yep.
Have you ever met Larry Hama?
Yes, I've met him a few times actually. So I've Had that honor many times. Larry
Awesome.
Hama is
Oh yeah,
just,
he's crazy good. Like he was at HowCon one year, and I was set up selling art, and I was surprised how many people weren't there. Like someone would wander by and talk to him for a bit and leave, and I'm like, why is he not mobbed? Like it's like he's such a legend, and like, and I talked. I think it was the last person I spoke with before you in the last episode, Marvin Wynn, and he was saying, that how he kind of got led to comics by those cartoons, like how you would watch G.I. Joe and then go read the comic, and there's such a disconnect with the quality of the cartoon and the quality of that comic. The comic was fantastic, like some dark themes, real interesting stuff that sort of just kind of went way out of the realm, and it's fantastic. So
oh yeah, I mean, well, my album Welcome to Cobra Island is fully inspired by Larry Hama's work. I mean, obviously I touch on the cartoons and stuff like that, but that comic outsold everything in the 80s. Like people forget it was outselling Amazing Spider-Man. It was outselling Chris Claremont's X-Men, like John Byrne. Like G.I. Joe was number one, and Larry never got he gets the props within the community, within the Joe scene and the people who know. And he's a direct, the quality of that book is a reason so many more kids got exposed to comics as well, right? Like that was your intro to Marvel. Because they did advertise the comic on TV. You'd buy a G.I. Joe comic, or you'd bug your babysitter or your aunt or your mom or whoever, buy me this G.I. Joe comic back when they were like $1 or 75 cents. And that it was the gateway. You'd open up, and in the back there'd be like all this stuff, the Marvel bullpen bulletins, and you'd see all these other comics. Oh, I guess I should go find out what Avengers West Coast is all about, or what is Dreadstar? What are all these strange new universe and all these things? And then you just get exposed to so many new comics, and it was the gateway drug. Like for me, like the earliest comics I had, I mean, definitely G.I. Joe, but before that, I read a lot of Spidey, and like I had the other cousins.
Spider-Man was always mine too.
Spidey, and then like the Gold Key comics. Like I had a lot of like the like Uncle Scrooge Gold Key was doing reprints for a while, or Dell. Like I think it was Dell and Gold Key, and they were like Roadrunner and the Looney Tunes comics.
That was all
like
the
that.
Dell stuff, I believe.
Dell. Yeah,
Gold
Dell
Key was
Gold
like
Key.
Turok and a lot of that stuff from back in the day, and like a lot of weird old Western comics. So I think they were doing like the Star Trek comics back in the day. The show was coming out.
Yeah, I feel like Gold Key might have done some Disney stuff too briefly. Maybe not, but maybe Dell, or they were just like grouped together. But
maybe
those were gas stations. Like go on a trip to Antigonish, I would find that in a gas station for sure. Anyways, excellent. So Larry Hama is he's a living legend.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
What a life. Anyone unfamiliar with him, go just do a bit of Googling. I mean,
even just go read those comics. They're fantastic. Like a lot of he took was essentially just kind of a dumb show, and not to criticize G.I. Joe, because it is fun, but it's basically just the same thing every week, the Cobra and whatever. But he actually like gave like some pretty deep and real backstories to some of these characters that I feel like maybe weren't quite as elaborate in the cartoon. Like I remember reading like Snake Eyes stories and realizing how tragic of a character he was and all that stuff. I didn't really get from the show. He was just a cool ninja guy, and then you want to read the comics, and there's all these elaborate stories and really elaborating on that relationship between him and Storm Shadow and all that sort of stuff. So
he essentially co-created just about every one of those characters, right? So he wrote all their file cards on the back, and those were your launch pad as a kid. If you got an action figure and you read the back and you got this whole story, you've got, whoa, this is like a launch for me to like go have adventures, like knowing this guy, this guy's like the bomb detection expert, but he's also like incredibly clumsy. They all had like things like that. That was Tripwire for those of you King Bing score, the Minesweeper, I should say. The comics fleshed out all those stories that you would read in the back of the cards. And, he's a veteran, and, he had tours in Vietnam, and that's no joke. And he brought a lot of that, knowing that you can't, tell these like adult stories to essentially an audience of 8-year-olds, but he never talked down to the audience. So he found a way to like write these adult comics for kids who were, I was probably like 5 or 6 when I read my first G.I. Joe comics, it was crazy. Yeah.
I guess one more question before we go is, do you feel like, because like nerd stuff is certainly in the greater culture, way more accepted and celebrated now because of, you know, the Marvel movies and DC movies and these TV shows are all based on comics and cartoons and everything else. Do you feel like your market because of that has increased? Like, I don't know, market's not the right word I'm looking for, but like, do you feel like the mass appeal of that and the sort of nostalgia becoming big business nowadays is really sort of skyrocketed, like creators like yourself that kind of lean heavy into that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, there's definitely more opportunities to, you know, to have your art exposed, right? Like with comic conventions, welcoming music and stuff. And it's certainly not something I never would have thought the Infinity Gauntlet would be a household name. You know,
like Thanos,
your mom knows who Thanos is. Like your mom knows who Iron Man is, of all things, right? I mean, no offense to moms. There's a lot of awesome moms that read Iron Man and know exactly who the Avengers are. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And had I foreseen this stuff, I mean, I get so excited. I'm like, you know, a 7-year-old kid every time a new Marvel movie comes out. It's like I can't believe the movies are as good as they are.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, I only wish they'd done that with G.I. Joe, but that's a whole other thing.
Oh, you didn't love that new Snake Eyes movie?
My go-to statement on that is some things like Snake Eyes are better left unsaid.
Yeah. Very nice. I skipped it. It just didn't. I knew I would just be disappointed.
You know what? It's probably the second best of the G.I. Joe 3 movies that have come out, the live action ones. But
yeah, I assume it's two Snake Eyes in one.
Yeah, 2 Snake Eyes, 1. That's probably how I'd rank them.
Yeah, that's fair.
2 has some pretty badass stuff in it. I gotta get, and they tried. Tried.
Two almost seems like them trying to make up for 1. Like they're like, look, we'll give you the Rock, we'll kill off the people you didn't like, we'll make, you know, Cobra look cooler, we'll you know, get rid of Deathstroke for some reason. They're just kind of like just sort of move things around, or not that creative, but like make them cooler. It just seemed like they tried really hard. It's like Alien Covenant. It almost seems like they didn't, like they listened to the audience and went, all right, we'll give you more of what you want, and then it's still not really. It's like Band-Aid on a broken leg at that point.
Yeah, it's like there's a Jackass skit. I don't know if you watch Jackass.
I have, yeah.
Where the guy eats a raw egg, then regurgitates it, makes an omelet out of it, and then eats that.
Yeah, that's a really good allegory. Yeah, that's
like,
a really good allegory.
I barfed this up, made an omelet out of it, and now I'm serving it to you. Yeah, it tastes a little better than barf, but
that may be one of the best allegories I've ever heard for those franchises. That's hilarious.
A barf omelet is still barf.
Well, you know, I won't ask you about the live action Transformers movies then.
I stopped after 2. I think
3 is when I tapped out. Actually, Bumblebee I really liked, but everything else I did not enjoy at all.
Yeah.
Bumblebee felt like a return to kind of sit more closer to what I remember from growing up. In that way.
I've heard good things. I haven't been able to do it.
Well, we get to someday. But
there's like a couple other. There's so many good comics that I'd rather read. Like that's the thing with a lot of this stuff too. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather read the comic, or I'd rather watch another show.
And most times you're right. Most times you're right. But I know what you're saying about the. I often talk about the Thanos thing. Like Thanos is always like Jim Starlin's one of my all-time favorite comic creators.
Oh, he's a god. He's a Thanos himself, right?
Yeah, and Thanos was always my favorite villain because his motivation was always so unique. And like I always like cosmic characters. He was just a cool character, very Shakespearean, in love with death, which is such an interesting, different take on you know, a motivation for a hero, because his core motivation is love, but it's like this terrible world destroying love that'll like destroy half of all life in the universe. And you know, he's willing to make those sacrifices for love. The movie obviously went a different way to try to appeal to everybody, which I understand is fine. But just the fact I would see him in a movie, like after the Avengers stinger from the first movie, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like even Rocket Raccoon and Groot and, you know, characters. So the Collector, like characters that I've always
Ego,
loved.
the living planet.
Yeah, Ego. I was like, my God, Ego. Like, it's amazing. And I mean, James Gunn leans so hard into that stuff with the Guardians movies. It's and like even getting the original Guardians, like their version of them with Stallone and Stakar and all those guys, like that's fun.
Right.
Like it's just a wellspring of stuff that he does so well. That brings together so well. I don't know if you saw the new Suicide Squad movie.
I did see it.
I loved it. I loved it so dearly.
Starro was like, you know what? It was probably my favorite DC movie. I gotta say.
I agree. Oh, hands down, I agree. I've hated almost everything, with like exception maybe Wonder Woman and Shazam. I've really disliked almost everything they've put out since this new. Although I actually did like Snyder's Justice League, and I didn't want to. Like I went into that not wanting to like that at all, and I actually really enjoyed it. So, but
the gratuitous violence in Suicide Squad, I just wish there could have been a version. I know I sound like maybe like the old, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe there is a PG-13 version, because there were a lot of great things about it.
Yeah.
But
the kids could probably take away that they probably won't because of the.
Exactly. And I know it's like the complete opposite of Guardians, where he's like, oh man, I'm free to do a crazy superhero movie and I can make it like over the top, stupid, violent, and murder innocent people without repercussions. Blah, blah, blah. I was just been like, guys, okay. And I've read the Suicide Squad comics, and they're amazing.
The Ostrander one?
Yeah. And like the newer stuff, and like when Gail Simone did like Secret Six, which was basically another kind of take on it, and like all that. So there's great stuff, and there's a way to do it. That's a whole other conversation. I do think it's still my favorite DC movie. Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
It was great. The Starro stuff alone was just like brilliant. And
I told my friend, and he still makes fun of me about it, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm comfortable enough with my masculinity. I said, I didn't expect to watch a movie with a giant star, with a bunch of mercenaries fighting a giant like kaiju star, and have tears in my eyes, because I was so happy and it was so touching. Like that scene at the end when they kind of get to the big thing, and it cuts back to her with her dad. Like I was like, it was just so good. Like the tone was so good. And I always say anybody that felt like anybody that ever felt like they didn't belong, I think can really find something in that movie that'll sort of that resonate with you. Because I just recently sort of been reading. I've never really been into much spiritualism or anything, but I read a book on just being happier that I picked up somewhere. I never really ever read that sort of stuff, but it just kind of spoke to me for some reason. There's a lot of Buddhist stuff in it, but one thing I sort of taken away from it was that like even the most broken and like messed up people that you can think of that you've ever encountered in your life just want to be happy. And if you can kind of boil it down to that, you can really find this sort of commonality amongst all people. And I feel like that movie did a really good job of putting that on display with those sort of characters. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they found that bond together.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like James Gunn got amazing performances. Like everyone was committed
to
their parts. And like that's a big thing for these movies. And I think where Marvel gets it right a lot is having these characters fully, the actors are like, they accept this world. Like when you watch some of the pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe superhero movies, where you can see half the people in the movie are like, I'm just getting a paycheck.
Yeah, I don't want to be here.
This is craziness. This makes no sense. You need to have that full commitment. And it's I'd like to see DC, handle make some more good movies, and not,
I feel like
not to slight if people like the previous ones, but there's just, look, I love Affleck. Affleck's my favorite Batman.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I agree too.
I just wanted to see his world more. Just give me that Affleck. The Batfleck movie,
and one that was a little less like I've always been very forgiving of superhero movies when they go off reservation. Like even like the end of Watchmen in the movie, like I was kind of okay with them changing that. I understand that they need to reach groups, so if it's not the same as the comic, that doesn't normally bother me unless it's like way out to lunch. But to me, I just really hate the depiction of Superman. Like I just really like in the comics, we have so much dark stuff. Everything doesn't need to be pitch black. We can have a light, happy character, like you can make a world like Guardians of the Galaxy where you have a Star-Lord who's actually a bright, sort of funny, happy, generally happy character who's a bit goofy, but means well. So like, we have Captain America movies where he's the kind of a shining example of the way we should be. And I feel like Superman should always be that. And I just feel like the Dark Knight Rises did well, or all the Dark Knight movies. And they're like, all right, let's just paint Superman with that brush. And it's like, he really shouldn't be. And I just feel like the tone is all wrong.
Yeah, they have to be the yin and the yang of like the same coin. Like they're both fighting for good, but they have their different means. Yeah, you can't make Superman too much like Batman.
And that's where it usually fell apart with me. But
and you know what? We've got this. That's why I like the Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man movies. I think Tom Holland's been great, and that's like that positivity and that like energy, and that's Spidey. You know, is like always optimistic and like you need that balance. And Tony Stark, you know, they did a great job with making him pretty positive, I think, in a lot of those movies too.
Yeah, I feel like the tone is good for the most part. Is, you know, they obviously have to world build and make everything fit together, but I don't know. I dig it. I think I'm on board for like Marvel hasn't made a movie, even their worst ones. I mean, what people call their worst ones, I still like and find joy in. You know, I'll take Thor 2 over Batman vs Superman any day. So
you know what? I don't know.
I rewatched it at Christmas. I rewatched
Superman. I like for the Batman stuff. I'd rather watch Thor. I was in a theater with 6 people with me, like a group of us. Okay. I was the only person who didn't fall asleep.
Oh, really?
In the theater when we went to see Thor 2. I literally looked over. My wife's asleep. My buddy's asleep. His girlfriend's asleep. Everyone's sleeping, and it was like an 8:00 show. Like it wasn't. I was like, "Did I take my grandparents to see the Marvel?"
the Marvel.
The Marvel. I take my grandpa to see the Marvel. Yeah,
that's funny. I rewatched it at Christmas time. They had like some kind of. I was at my parents' place, and it was just a marathon on TV, and alcohol was involved, so maybe that made me enjoy it more than the last time I saw it. But I remember thinking like, it's okay, it's fine. Like I described the new Venom movie as that. I'm like, it's fine, I guess. It's like soup's fine. Soup's okay. I don't go to my way to get soup. I'm never craving soup. I'd probably not go back and have the same soup again, but it's fine. You know, like it's whatever. Although I did watch the new one and I've used that to describe the first Venom movie. I watched the new one and I was very unimpressed.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'll get to it. Yeah.
It's maybe you'll enjoy it, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Czarface actually have a song on the soundtrack, which is cool.
Yeah, the soundtrack's great. I'll definitely not take that away from it. And Tom Hardy is a good actor, but I always say when you watch like those sort of movies, you can only polish a turd so much. And if the script's real bad and has a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense and a lot of no explanation for stuff that should have a brief amount of explanation, you know, it's pretty easy to check out. So
yeah, you can only omeletify barf so many times.
Exactly. That's a great Jackass reference.
Have you do you watch Walking Dead?
I do, although I'm like a season behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, someone's it.
Aren't
they wrapping it up this season?
Yeah, so they just had the mid-season finale this weekend. And look, I read every issue of the comic.
Yeah, me too.
I think it has one of the best endings of any comic series I've read. Like as far as ending a comic series, I don't know if you've read the comics or not.
Yeah.
I think that last issue was like an amazing way to wrap it up, and everything they did with the suspense, and they didn't let people know it was going to be the last issue. So when you're reading it, you're like, wait a second, why is this an extra size issue? There's like an odd number, and it's like, wait, this is it? This is the end?
Yeah, it was like 193 or something. Like they almost made it 200, and you're like, what here? And
they did a psych out for retailers too. They did like they false solicited future issues. Like
I didn't realize
that. Brilliant thing that I would say like one of the top 10 comic marketing events that I have seen, and there's been a lot. Anyways, the show, I think this season's there's been some crazy good episodes. Like it's really, you know, it still does some things that are frustrating every now and then, and you know, I'm watching and my wife is like, Maggie's got a balayage. I think it's balayage. It's like a hairstyle where your hair is like dyed different colors.
Yeah.
She's not getting that done in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, who's doing that for you?
Yeah, who's doing that for you? So, you know, there's a few things where you're just like, that takes me out of it a bit. But yeah, I think this season's been awesome. There's one episode called Inside, which is probably a top 5 episode of the entire series. And it's a standalone. I won't spoil it for you, but
I'm gonna have to catch up then. I usually watch it while I'm doing like cardio, so I was waiting for it to hit Netflix is where I usually just deep dive into it.
Nice.
But I'm deep into Squid Game right now. That's my show.
Yeah.
It's good. It's so good.
Squid Game.
Yeah, that and Midnight Mass is next. I'm a huge fan of Mike Flanagan in his movie. So the guy
Yeah,
did
I
it.
haven't watched Midnight Mass, so
No.
Squid Game is great if you're
Yeah.
not squeamish.
Well, I'm almost on episode 2, so I'm super digging it. But then I just noticed the movies that made us just put out a new season. I'm like, it's all Halloween stuff, so I'm like sidetracked on watching some of that. Like you talked about that stuff earlier. The Toys That Made Us show they have is definitely designed for us, and the movies one is quite good too. It's all like Halloween, Friday the 13th, all that stuff right now. So.
Yeah, I like it. And you don't know who's going to show up because sometimes they get like the big stars. And then sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, Spielberg clearly declined to be interviewed for this.
Yeah, I went into the Halloween one. I'm like, I'm almost positive I'm not going to see John Carpenter talking in this. You know, that's not something with him in the background somewhere or whatever. But
yeah, they're doing Aliens too, right?
Yeah, I think it's on the season as well. So I think it's Friday the 13th is the second episode. Halloween was 1. So I'm not sure where Alien is. But I think there's 3 or 4. So it does fall in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably my second favorite movie after The Burbs, or it's tied. Aliens and The Burbs, bringing it all back.
I can. We could talk about The Burbs all night.
Tom Hanks' greatest film.
Oh, dude, The Neighbor is someone I don't think I've ever seen in another movie, or if I
Bruce
did, I don't.
Dern?
No, Bruce Stern, the other guy, the comedy neighbor. The guy's like
actually Canadian.
Is he? Oh man,
he died a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. He's like, you're chanting, Ray. You're chanting. I like Satan. Satan is my friend. It's just it's so good. Everything's
so many. Great
Bruce
quotes.
Stern, I definitely you know, Carrie Fisher and all that stuff. So
we sampled that for. I have a track called "Sneaky Neighbors," which is definitely inspired by The Burbs, and you'll probably get a couple references.
Fantastic. I still laugh just thinking about when he thinks like that he would just did wrong, that they're normal people. He didn't, you know, he just messed up their house. He didn't do anything wrong, and he just like when he walks and he face plants in the in the ambulance, and he's like, "I'm sick, take me away," and he just flattens right into the thing. Right, it rolls a little bit ahead. It's just so. It's like I think Hanks. I mean, obviously everyone knows he's a fantastic actor. But I feel like his comedic stuff from back that period doesn't get the amount of attention it deserves because, man, like his physical comedy is fantastic.
It's amazing. It's still his best movie. I mean, I think Forrest Gump. What's that? Too. Philadelphia. Excuse me. Castaway. No, I'm sorry. The Burbs. I'm probably forgetting 80 other movies.
It doesn't matter. Everyone.
Mr. Rogers.
Well,
The Burbs. He was great in that. Yeah.
You know, take all that stuff and your Captain Phillips, get that out of there, and go watch The Burbs. Do yourself a favor this Halloween. Well, man, thanks for talking to me, dude. This is a really fun time.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. It's the most fun I've had on a Tuesday all week. So thanks.
Well, let me know.
It's been an absolute joy. So thanks.
Oh, dude, me too. And let me know when you're down in the area. We'll have to hook up.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah. When you watch Walking Dead, maybe bring me back on and we can,
right. We'll do a special Walking Dead episode. We'll just start our own Walking Dead podcast where you and I watch every episode.
Sure. I'm sure no one else is doing that.
Only every show ever made has that right now.
But weirdly, I have no one to talk about it with. It's
really?
like no one, everyone I know either gave up or just.
Most people have given up.
Yeah.
And especially because it's so big now. There's this spin-off show they're going to do after this with Carol and Daryl. Carol and Daryl, right?
And his other brother Daryl.
He finds another brother they forgot about. Then there's the Fear one, then there's the World of one, and then
World of is wrapping. Fear is quite good too, actually. Like Fear is kind of like,
but I liked it because I watched the first few episodes and I was like, I care about these people before the zombies got here. Like I'm interested in the story before there were zombies. So
Fear is like the art film version of it or something. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but Fear is like, it gets weird. It's out there. Like Fear is for like the people who are like, I want that the deeper cut weirdness going on.
Yeah.
Like what's really going on. And Walking Dead is kind of like the popcorn zombie one. It's like, you know what you're going to get. And then The World Beyond is like, what happens with kids and it's, I don't know, season 1 is really hard to watch. But
oh, really? All right. Well, I haven't got to that one yet, so I've been slowly crawling through it. So, and then we get these movies coming. It's a big scope for people that are like, you know, if you just want to watch something, you're like, well, here's 11 seasons of this one, and then 9 seasons of this one, the spinoff solo show which is coming out, and then that one, and then movies. So it's a lot. But
they don't want us to leave.
No, you can't.
Want us to just glue ourselves to the TV. So
well, I think they don't want
to
to come up with something different.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm along for the ride. Why not? I often go down with the ship, so I'll stick with it.
All good.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. It was great talking to you, Sean.
My pleasure, man. Thanks, Andre.
Anything coming out you want to promote before we go?
Yeah, well, I've got new vinyl. We're launching a crowdfunder for the MacGuffin device vinyl, which is a collection of tracks that came out between 2018, or I guess between 2017 and 2019, featuring songs like Rental Patient, which you might like, which is all about, there's a video for that. It's all about renting videos. So MacGuffin device vinyl crowdfunder we're launching probably early November. And then my next album, which will be my 8th full-length album, is going to be coming out spring 2022, and that's called Bergonomic, because I like to get comfortable in your ears. It's ergonomically designed.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think if anyone has liked any songs I've ever made, I hope they'll give both those albums a listen, because I think there's a lot of fun stuff. And Bergonomic is shaping up. Bergonomic, actually, Buck 65's. I worked with him on that, and Joe Run, and Beat Mason, and Fresh Kills, and Timbuktu, and all the collaborators. And we've got artwork by Kalman Androsofsky, who's done work with Marvel and Captain Canuck and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, a lot of fun surprises planned for 2022. So
perfect. Well, let me know, and I'll definitely share it on the socials.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you. Let me know when this drops.
Oh, we'll do. Thanks again, man. It was great talking to you.
Great. All right. Say hi to Daniel Clamp.
It will do. Have a good one.
You too, man. Peace.
There it is, my conversation with Sean Jordan, the Wordburglar. Big thanks to Sean for coming on, and big thanks for you for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another featured interview edition. I have to get ready for trivia night. As Sean mentioned, I do host it, and tonight is the night as I'm putting this together. It's been a week since our conversation. Now I need to go do it again. So I'm not going to keep you too long. Just thanks again for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe if you don't already. Please make sure to share if you can, and if you want to, let others know. Word of mouth is good. I've noticed my subscribers list creeping up. I think some of the people I've had on recently have assisted with that. I think I saw a big spike with Rob Gilroy, which is cool, and all that sort of stuff. It's good. It's good. I'm glad people are listening, and I hope to get into more ears, as many ears as possible. But thank you for listening. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time.